So first of all, let me introduce myself. This very handsome guy on the suit is me in Paris. So during the day, I'm leading a company called Star Schema, where we have 200 consultants, mostly in Hungary and the United States, and really specialized to do data warehousing and BI-related services. What makes us special, first of all, we are working with beautiful partners like Anya. But what is more important that we are really famous that most of the largest Tableau deployment are using our services. So we are those special Tableau partners who are really specialized in the largest and most complex deployments. And today I really prepared some of the solutions what we built for these large enterprises like Fortune 10 companies and large tech entities. I cannot really name these clients, but let me just give like one reference. So Tableau Software is one of our clients. So we do feature development also for Tableau, which makes us a very special partner. Like other partners are paying to Tableau to be partners, why Tableau is paying us to do some stuff. So we are very happy. Okay, so large deployments. What are large deployments? This is a nice screenshot from one of my clients. They have 10 worker nodes and a master cluster, more than 200 CPU cores, hundreds of thousands of users. And you can imagine, so even there is 1% of your user base experiencing an issue or have a special need, it's immediately above 1,000 of users. So here in these environments, we really have to add all the missing functionalities. We really have to make it robust enough just to make it, operatable and make it usable in this scale. So how should we survive this complexity? Today we heard some great sessions, like when we heard like what are the different missing pieces from Tableau Server, scheduling, automated extract generations. These are the things what everyone is doing. So I tried to prepare some cases which are a little bit more advanced or more special, but also useful and helps us to survive this complexity. So I think the key is to automate everything, have a rock-solid communication, and develop all the missing pieces what you need to serve your clients and make your life easier. So let's start with the automation. This is a very basic AWS Quick Starter infrastructure. So whenever you are building a Tableau infrastructure, you have to install the operating systems, you have to install the ODBC drivers, you have to log on to separate to a lot of computer nodes, install Tableau Server. If you are doing in a wrong way, you are doing this next finish installation. And if you have like one node, a tiny one, and you have two environments, it might be okay. But as long as your environment grows, it's just generating a lot of human work. So clicking on the next finish is a dead end. It doesn't scale. And since you have a lot of environments, your environment getting complex, you need to sometimes change like a registry value in one node, but you forget to do it in the others. It's just generating a lot of potential errors in your flow. So the problems that human work doesn't scale well. You can do things for one server, but again, if Tableau will really push new releases every third month and you want to upgrade all of your environments, you have a lot of nodes, your cloud infrastructure is getting complex, it will take a lot of time. It's error prone. Again, if you follow documentation and do everything, you can forget things, and you are usually using the assumption that every system is the same as the other. However, if it's not automated but built by you, it's not necessarily true. Upgrades, test, and dev system deployments are not agile enough. Obviously, you have to, if you need like a new version, it should be things like that. You have to have this new system, test everything, and if it's not working at first, just dispose it. So what is the solution? Everything must be automated. So your infrastructure should be a code. You have to have a code, and when you press a button, you should have a new Tableau server configured from scratch. This is the only way to make it scalable. Also, you should forget upgrades. Upgrades are evil. If you do an upgrade on your staging environment and it, I don't know, passes your test, it doesn't mean that your upgrade will work on production because they are not 100% similar. They are not starting from the same state. So the best way, the best practice, what our big customers are doing, if they are upgrading, they are just starting a new installation from scratch, automated way, restore the data, and if it works, then switch off the old one. That's it. Always start from the clean sheet and don't do anything manually. If you need ODBC driver, if you need to configure your SSO integration, have it in the script. Don't do anything manually. Seriously. So how this works? For this example, what I showed before, for the AWS, you can download the CloudFormation scripts from the Tableau GitHub. It's pretty easy. You import it into your AWS console. You add what should be your IP addresses, what should be the credentials for the Tableau admin server, what are the registration information, and after you click the finish, it will generate your Tableau infrastructure with all the information you provided. You don't have to log on into one single computer. And you can have as much things as you want, as much nodes as you want. So you should use maybe CloudFormation scripts. If you're on AWS, you have to ask your DevOps team. If you don't have DevOps team, you have to have. So it's a great task to start. You need Shape, Ansible, Terraform scripts. You can use Docker containers to test like your in-house developments. Like if you have an inbuilt integration, like a tool which can take PDF from your servers and send it to your users, then that development also has to test against different Tableau server environments. So your build process should ramp up different Tableau servers, most probably in a Docker container, and test again different versions to make sure that what you built a week ago will work also in the next week. I also built some scripts for like making Docker images from Tableau server. Let me just show you how it works. It's pretty boring, but also very cool for me and takes like 10 seconds, and I love to show it, so I'm going to do it. Usually, you just take the source codes from the GitHub and say, okay, I want a Tableau server, and press an enter. It will first get and install a CentOS operating system. It will go and upgrade the operating system, retrieve your operating system based dependencies, what you need to run Tableau server. Then it will download the latest Tableau server version. It will configure it, activate the licenses, and when everything is done after your lunch, you will have a nice Tableau server with just one single click. Everything is automated. So right now, it's getting the operating system components to make Tableau server run. So we're really starting from the very beginning to make sure that there is no human interaction. We don't rely on anyone else. We can check later on this presentation that if the server is running or not. Spoiler, it will run. So besides automation, the most important thing is communication. So if you are working with users, and unfortunately we have to work with users sometimes, then you know that communication is crucial. So if there are some issues with your server, with proper communication, you can still stay friends with your user base. However, if you miscommunicate, if you don't give the background, the root cause analysis, and you don't reach them and they find the problems by themselves before you, give them the information, the friendship will be very fragile and short-handed. So what's the problem right now with the communication? So Tableau doesn't have a good built-in communication system where administrators can access the user base. So I have a client, actually I have more, where they have like really tens of thousands of users on their system, and they are doing email communication if the server is down or if they have a planned maintenance. But the problem is that there are some users who never log on to the Tableau server, but they constantly getting an email that the server is not accessible. They don't care, most probably, or they don't know what is this Tableau, but there are so many outages, so if they trigger, they will be triggered. And again, you are not always seeing your email. You need to be communicated directly there where you face the issue. And also, in some cases, when you're using Tableau Desktop, there is no way to add your own content into Tableau Desktop. So what is the solution? You have to work on your own communication strategy, and relying only on emails is not a good solution. You can have like Slack integration, or you can add communication into your Tableau portal. I will show it lately. And what is very important and very easy to do is most probably you have load balancers and firewalls in your infrastructure ahead your Tableau server cluster. So whenever your Tableau server is down, your load balancer should detect that the server is not accessible, and you need to redirect the users to a specific static web page which says that you're already working on an issue, and you can put a random incident number to make sure that they feel that someone is really looking into the issue from the operation perspective. Let me do a quick demonstration. What is our approach here? So this is one of my favorite Tableau server. Every Tableau server is my favorite, actually. And here I have this nice cluster status button. And if my users click there, they can see a very similar page as the trust.tableau.com, where can they see like what's the current status, are there any maintenance scheduled, also see where they had outage in the past. But what is also more important, if you log on as an administrator here, you can schedule planned maintenance here directly. So let's add a planned maintenance on July the 9th and set the notification date from yesterday to July the 9th and say, okay, we will reboot the computer, reboot this guy, don't work, and save it. And if I'm lucky enough and go back here, reload this page, I have this information on the bottom which tells the guys, we will reboot the computer, so there is a planned maintenance, and I have to dismiss it. I don't have to send emails to those people who are not affected. And it's not really annoying, but still you have all this information which is really useful for your users. So here, having a trust site or a status site is crucial because users can check if there is any issue or not in one single place. And the second is, if you add communication into the WIS portal, it also makes it very convenient for your users to be informed about stuff. Hey, no space of, oh, no. Yeah, that's about my spoilers. Whatever. Let me show them something else. Okay, so notification best practices, as I told you, trust site and eliminate emails. What about desktop users? So how can we reach out desktop users? We have a client who has more than 3,500 desktop installations, and they are using desktop properly. which means they are not really logging into the Tableau server because they don't care about the Tableau server. They are selfish enough to do analysis for themselves, answer their questions, and drop away everything. So what can we do for them? We built something for them where they can just customize the Tableau desktop experience. And like myself, I don't really care about the viz of the day, so I replaced it with my image. But what is most important, if you deploy a custom Tableau desktop, you can put all of the important links on the right, like where is your internal training site, how can you, I don't know, get new license keys, where you can get training. So if I click here, it will open my Tableau trainings website. And the way how my client is using, they just drop away everything which is Tableau branded and have integrated it with their own COE infrastructure. Which means that you have communication in the desktop, communication in the server directly. And it's also listed here. So nice. So but that's not my presentation. Neither. Yes. So that's me. I like myself a lot. So, but let's move forward. Understanding the infrastructure. There is no good presentation without a motivation quote. So this is our motivation quote for today. A true friendship is to understand and be understood. So what does it mean? So why do we need to understand our users? Why do we need to understand our infrastructure? First of all, usually administrators, especially in large deployments, have zero idea what's going on. They see like tens of thousands of users floating in, floating out, connecting to those databases where they have no access, and they constantly ping like, what will happen if we change this and change that? What are the guys who are misusing the server? Where are the badly designed dashboards? And it's very hard for them without getting a full picture of their infrastructure. So what's the best practice here? The solution is that you should, again, consume and read all the server logs. You have to gather all the infrastructure-related events, store it in a database, check your repository often, and parse your workbook and data sources XML and understand what's inside the workbooks without really having a look in it. So you need to automate everything. And put controls like detective and preventive controls on top of these consolidated information. So let me show a couple of examples. First of all, the new server logs is a huge new asset for us Tableau server administrators. Again, I'm not a Tableau server administrator, but I like to explain myself in this way. However, this is a new stuff released this year. In the past, I need the laser. So, but which one is the laser? Cool. So in the past, you only had the timestamp for information and who is doing what kind of things and what is the message for that type of activity. But Tableau recently completed this information with infrastructure consumption information. More specifically, it tells you for each and every log line, like how much memory was used or were used, and how much real CPU on the server was consumed. Plus, again, what was the real elapsed time. So this line or this action took, I don't know, 4 whatever seconds, and we use like 2 and 5 user CPU ticks. It's like also a CPU consumption measurement. And based on that, we can really understand if something happens and loads or uses resources on our server, or it waits for like a database. So it's like a very huge asset. So I'm sure that everyone have things like this where you can have the CPU and the memory information on process level and about your servers. If not, then you can build it very easily. Unfortunately, Tableau is not the best tool to do it because it's not really scales well, so you have to build your own or use ours, which is, this is open source with the infrastructure, so you can use ours. But you need to have the information like what are the resource consumptions on the server and visualize it to check what are the peaks, what are the different processes who are consuming stuff. But this is not enough in alone because you need to correlate, I mean, you have to go like one level below and check for individual non-performing workbooks. You have to understand like the bootstrap load, for instance, like how much seconds does it take to open a workbook versus how much CPU seconds were required on the server to be opened. You need to correlate it, and it will tell you if the dashboard is Tableau server resource heavy or database resource heavy. If database is not your problem, then you don't care if it takes like 10 seconds to load, but takes half second from your Tableau server infrastructure. So here, my message is that if you understand each and every workbook resource consumption, you know how much time does it take to load, you know how much CPU it takes from your server, you can go and programmatically hunt for badly designed dashboards thanks to the new server log extension, extended server logs, which was released in the 18.1 Tableau version. Also, with this consumption information, if you're doing proper chargeback, you can say that, okay, your workbook use this amount of CPU, so I don't know, the HR has to pay 5K, your finance have to pay 10Ks, and it will be very precise because they only pay for the consumption they utilized on your server. And you can really easily get this information from the server log, so you can do a proper chargeback. If you have this information, so you store like what are the opening times for your dashboards, you can also build some proactive alerting. Our best practice here is to identify 5 to 10 important or highly used or highly viewed dashboards or important dashboards and measure their opening baseline. And using very basic statistics, if the loading time is, I don't know, if the median load time is 30% more than the usual, it could trigger a warning. So you can automate your alert. So you can have not just alerts if something is not working, like the server goes down. With this information, using the historical baseline, you can make very more sophisticated alerts. If something is slowing down or compared to the same period, then it could generate like an early alert. So what about the metadata? That's the other piece, which is not really well covered in Tableau Server. Like typically, what we need, developers and also administrators, I'm changing my hat, is to understand like what are the opportunities to migrate different data sources together. To do that, we need to understand like what data source connect to where, what are the common fields, are there any opportunity to merge them together, and if they can merge it, like what workbooks should be changed. Or if we know that the underlying data source will be changed, so let's say we are renaming a column or renaming a table or moving a database, what are the impacted workbooks and dashboards? To do that, you have multiple ways, but at the end of the day, you have to get the XML files, the XML definition of your workbooks and data sources. You have to parse it. You can do it by downloading with a REST API, but if you have like, I don't know, 50K workbooks, it will take forever. You can use TabCMD, it's even slower, but what we usually do, and it's undocumented, you can go to the Postgres repository and get the workbook definitions directly from the large object store. It's documented in the Tableau community forums, which means that it's relatively fast. you directly hitting the Postgres database, getting back the XML files, and you can parse and check for different informations. So what are typically in these XML files? So you can check everything which is on the workbooks, like what are the different columns there, what are the calculations, what is the database source, what are the tables. So practically you can get all this information, and obviously you have to load it into a database and make it searchable. What we also usually do, let me just quickly maybe show this. So I have a tool which logs onto the Postgres repository, takes the XML files, and creates CSV exports from it. And if we check like what are the information which can be gathered from these files, we can see like database columns, what are the database calculations there, what are the database types in the database, or I can go to check the view, the different view information in a view, what kind of objects are used, what are the, you see nothing from this, you have to believe me, just like in the Docker case. So it has all the calculations, and practically starting from a view, starting from a chart, and there are objects, you can go back to the database and see like what are the fields in the database which were used to build that particular Tableau view. And since you have in the new releases this extension capability, you can build also automated, some self-service way to share this information for your end users, like adding a lineage button to your server or add a lineage button to your dashboards. So let me, open this guy. So here it's ugly as hell, but it will show the trick. If you select something in the dashboard, like a measurement or anything, it will tell you in a pop-up box what is the data source, what are the calculations in it, and you can just easily imagine a more sophisticated solution where you have a button, you just push that button, you have a pop-up dialog where the selected object will be explained for the end user, like where it's get it from and what are the applied calculations on the workbook, and it helps the users to understand what they are seeing. Thanks. Welcome. Few years and Tableau will have it. So I have an animated GIF. I don't know why, but it's a work in progress. I did a demo. Yeah. So how to understand your users? This is also very important. We also build a nice extension to show it. Let me show it. So what's the challenge here? You can go to the repository and understand which user opened what. But if you have like other questions, like what is the most heavily used filters, what are the filter sets, what they are changing, what is the screen resolution they use, what is the mobile device they have. This is not there in the repository. It's not really in a consumable way. So we built a nice extension, which is free, but you can make another one. And I also know another partner who built also very specific Google Analytics connector, which also passing this kind of information to Google Analytics. So you can build, let me show it. So I must see something. Let me open a dashboard, another one, and show like how easy to add an extension which grabs all the information related to the user sessions and can store it in a database. So let's use the Superstore, which is one of my personal favorite. Unfortunately, it's not made by me, but I'm using it pretty frequently. Let me add this Tableau Tracker extension. Let me configure to my newly generated deployment ID. So what it does, it's every time I switch like something, interacting with the dashboard, it will save it in a database. And also, a single database dashboard author can add this kind of extension. And after that, he or she, and also us, can understand like what filters have been used, who is looking for the CEO salaries. So it's quite useful in many circumstances. So how to gather this information? Let me take this data. You can go directly to the database or get it as a Tableau Web Data Connector. Let me just show it quickly. You need the same deployment ID and admin key. So from here, we can see that we executed some filter actions. We changed filters to the east. So we have all the information what the user did in the dashboard, and we can use it to optimize the dashboard more for the actual real usage pattern. It's in the Tableau gallery. Unfortunately, the Tableau gallery is not released, but when it will be released, this is there. I love it, actually. Not because it's my own, still. Okay, so some advanced topics. Offsite backup, one of my favorite. So what's the problem here? If you have hundreds of gigabytes of backup, I mean your TS backup file is hundreds of gigabytes, which can obviously the case if you are extracting like there is no tomorrow. Some of my clients do it all the time. Then to take a backup will take an hour. Also will run on your primary node, taking your CPU core licensed resources, if you're unlucky. And since it takes a lot of time, you cannot really have it in a very frequent, you can't really take like backups every hour. There is no incremental backup. You might do it every week, and if something happens, you just have a weekly backup, and the chances that you are losing more than a few hours goes up. So what's the solution? The solution here is pretty easy. So TS backup files are just Postgres dump combined with the file store repository. And the TS back file is a zip, and in this zip file they have all of your file store files and the PG dump made by PG dump, the Postgres dump tool. You can do it everywhere you want. You don't have to do it on your master node. So that's step one. Step two, if you don't want to, if you want to build like an incremental backup or you want to do it more in an advanced way, you can add another Postgres server somewhere outside your cluster and use Postgres replication to replicate the data there. And then you can take the dumps from that external Postgres server. That's one of the options. The second is that there is a new feature since a year in Tableau, totally undocumented, but works like a charm, that Tableau now supports external repository, which means that you can move your Postgres repository into, I don't know, AWS, RDS, or Azure database services. It's there. They just forgot to document it. The guy who did it left the company, as far as I know, but it's there, so you can have external Postgres repository, and if it's in the cloud, you can take those tools to make a dump from it. So there are multiple ways. The easy one is to do PG dump and like a file replication with your storage solution or with your operating system, whatever it supports. But yes, you should move it away from the Tableau server. It doesn't belong to there. The other is what my other client is using. I take a nice screenshot because it's a Fortune 10 company, and if you check like what their server names, these are girls from Baywatch. So their production cluster is named after the girls, and it's fun. So what our tool can do, and it's also, I think it's open source, that you can define additional standby clusters. These standby clusters will also replicate the file store into other Tableau clusters. It will replicate the contents of your Postgres repository, so you can easily create disaster recovery replications, and you can also replicate the contents into other regions, like, I don't know, I'm sure everyone has some Chinese friends who always telling that they don't have the full Tableau experience because everything is slow over there. So this is also solutions where you just simply use the same principle, stream the Postgres data, move the files into another location using your own tools, and don't try to rely on the existing Tableau tools. Traffic management, this is my last. So the problem here that how you separate the different type of user actions in your cluster. So everyone has a greedy C-level guy who always tells that their reports are not as fast as they spent on the platform. And you are trying to do as much things as possible to make his experience, better. So what can you do in an existing Tableau world? Nothing. You might create a separate CFO cluster for him, but there is no built-in traffic management tool in Tableau. Other things like staging users who might crash your system. How can you say that everything which is not certified, like certified workbook, which is also missing from Tableau, but you can also edit easily. I really hope that one day we will have certified workbooks. So if the workbook is not certified, it has to go one dedicated worker node in your cluster to not interfere with your production cluster. How can you do it? Use some very not really hard load balancing rules which can be added into your gateway rules and make the traffic management happen. We have this parallel director as an open source tool. You can also download and experience it. It allows you to move like backgrounder jobs and bind different backgrounder jobs and extract refreshes to one particular background process. You can also say that I'm really afraid from these interactive web authors. I want to allow web authors to only go to one of my dedicated worker. So you can do this with our tool pretty easily. And this is something what we use very often at large deployments to make sure that they have control, like who can use what resources. So it's like a resource scheduling solution. Yeah, I'm not the best presenter, but I have some cool stuff, I guess. So at least it's 4 stars, not 5, and not that ambitious. But more importantly, I will share like all the GitHub links, all the source codes for this, if you're interested. But if you have like questions and stuff, I'm so happy to answer. Any questions? Yes, one. And you won't believe I have a microphone if you want.
I can probably.
Yeah.
Okay. What earlier on the presentation you were talking about don't do an upgrade, kind of just go straight from scratch. Would you suggest then that you just literally just discard your?
Yeah. Yes. Don't attach emotionally to your environments. Yes. I mean, upgrading is always like a hell. You will forget what you did when you had like some emergency situation. You change one configuration, and you will lose this information. You should start everything from scratch. It's easier. Why? I mean,
I've never thought about that before, really, so I just wondered. We tend to do like backup and backup and restore. So
Yeah, so you can, yeah, so you can like disable the publishing permission during the switchover or during the upgrade, so the old systems can be used, but they cannot add new content. In the meanwhile, you can just restore the backup to your new system, check if everything is okay, redirecting your load balancer, the people to the new cluster without changing their URL. And if you are happy, you can keep it for a few days, just to have it as a backup plan or a rollback plan, and then kill it. I mean, it's cool. Yeah. Yes, now you are far away. You need a microphone. Yeah. I was trained that I have to pass the mic.
So very interesting, and one quick question. Do you have anything for the change management, from the change management perspective? If somebody changed the permissions, removed the workbook or deleted it, are you parsing these logs as well? Because the most interesting is the situation that somebody was removed from the workbook or somebody added the user who cannot see the workbook, then how can I see who did it, when, why, and what was
There are hist tables in the repository, so Tableau has a relatively good audit logs. So you can get this information easily from the hist_ tables.
Even changing the role of the user from the workbook level? I don't think so.
I need to check.
Okay.
I need to check.
Because I had the same issue, and I tried to
explore. There is not everyone there, yes. So I know.
Yeah.
I know some clients who, I need to check my mails. I mean, you can add like triggers to the Postgres repository or go and check from the server logs like what calls have been made. But yes, so Tableau audit is not that comprehensive as we want. So yes, maybe the permission, not all permission changes there. Maybe if you change the site role, yes, but if there is a permission, then it's so robust audit that it's not there. So yes, I remember.
Yeah, basically in the Tableau server logs they have, you can find the content ID and the role ID, but then there is no names, and so it's very hard Tableau server logs to find and then define who made the change and what was before and what is now. So that's
I have to look up because I think we run into the same situation and we reported and it might be implemented.
Cool, that would be interesting to see. Thank you.
But I'm not confident. Usually I am. I will give a card after that, and yeah. Any other question? Everything was clear?
Hi, I'd like to ask, I heard such rumors like, so now most of the tools you are introducing, they're using the PLSQL database, right? And I heard such thing like after Tableau introduced Hyper, the PLSQL is going to change into Hyper, or maybe it's already done.
No, it's not going to happen. Something else is going to happen. So what they try to do is to move Postgres to a documentum store. So most probably Solar or something similar will replace Postgres eventually, but it's not on the short or mid-term. But I'm not a Tableau employee, so I have honestly no clue. But what I see, what I heard, so Hyper is definitely not suitable for that. If it will happen in 3 months, then it will be like my Docker stuff. So, but no, I don't think so.
The session extension you had, does it keep track of memory usage for every session?
Yeah. I mean, not my extension, but it's in the log files, so yes. So you can get each and every vSQL sessions, what is the memory consumption. So you can check for those sessions and the users and the workbooks who are taking above average memory processes. And you can also check like what are the sessions which keep some memory logged in the cache or something like that. So you can go after the bad guys who are designing bad stuff.
But they're not the bad guys, they're the users. So the session is a user, right?
Yes, you are right.
So have you ever experienced having a long session timeout? And would it affect the memory?
I think so.
In theory,
I mean,
it should,
yes, so
but-
if the session is not timeouting, it's in the memory. So yeah, it impacts.
Okay. Thank you.
I mean, I wasn't really, but it really impacts.
Yeah.
I wasn't really convincing, but.
Funny question. Are you happy that Tableau server logs are, most of them are in different format? One is XML, another one is
They are
TXT.
working there. I mean, all the native stuffs are in JSON, so everything which is important is in JSON. And also this kind of CPU consumption, this new log format was added to Hyper as well. So you can go to the Hyper logs and see the CPU consumption on Hyper as well. So you can check if a workbook takes CPU consumption because it has to render like quick filters, so the visualization takes CPU, or the Hyper is the one which taking your CPUs, or it doesn't take CPUs but waits for the database. So I'm happy. They are going into the right direction. It was way worse a few years back. Tableau is evolving. It's a Tableau conference. So I think there is nothing else. Just say thank you for being here. So thank you.